All right, everybody, welcome back to Beneath the Hood. Yes.
We're back.
We're back. It's been 2 months. We told you, we were going to come back after we beat the game. And here's where we are. Listen,
the
guys,
weight was on me. It took me a lot longer than it took Johnny to finish.
I just want to clarify. This is not our job at all. This is a hobby for both of us, and
yeah.
I still live in my parents' basement. Bubba has a full-blown family. We have real life stuff going on. So, unfortunately we can't be as reliable as people who do this stuff full time, but boy, we both missed it, and we're both very excited to be back. The podcast is not dead. Of course it's not dead. Come on, guys. So, Bubba, how are you? The hat's on. We're ready to go.
The hat's back. I know. I haven't streamed in so long. I haven't made TikToks in so long. I haven't talked to you in so long. Johnny had to spend like an hour just catching up and talking about Marvel movies that we know way too much about and everything. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about the game. It took me so long. Part of the reason is because I wanted to enjoy it. I've never done game reviews like this before, and like Ubisoft sent us both a free copy of this game with the intention of us to not necessarily do a review. Like they didn't say, hey, do this and then review it.
Right.
They just said, hey, here's, make
Enjoy
content about it,
right.
Sure, but not necessarily a full-blown review. So I just wanted to take my time and enjoy it just like I would any other game. I didn't want to feel rushed, and so I think I went, like crazy for like the first 20 hours of the game, and then I really slowed down after that because I didn't want to ruin it for myself and get sick of it. And I think that helped a lot. So it's still faster than I usually finish games. I take a long time.
Yeah. So, I want to just clarify to everybody listening, we've talked zero about our experience with the story or anything like that. Not at all. We don't know. And a lot of my questions I'm going to ask you are to clarify how similar our playthroughs was, because we'll get into it, but some of my pacing was weird, and I just want to know if everything was the same with you. But yeah, guys, we're just gonna be talking about the game, so I hope you guys enjoy. But without further ado, Bubba, what'd you think? How did you like it?
Well, I do think, Johnny, you and I on the podcast months ago, and just on TikTok, predicted a long time ago that this was gonna be the return of Assassin's Creed. And it is.
Yep.
It really is. It's not a perfect game. We did a ranking, for those that remember, a few months ago, where we ranked all of the Assassin's Creed games kind of, from a critic standpoint, but really just based off of our enjoyability and how we rate the story, the gameplay, the mechanics, all that, the world. And we both had Shadows on like S tier level. I think, was it like ranked number 1 or number 2 for both of us?
Yep.
And I would still put it in like A+ tier or S tier. I don't know if it's my number 1, but they seriously killed it with this game. And I'm so glad. I am so glad that so many people finally just looked through the fog of all of these freaking brain rot TikTokers talking about how terrible this game is because they don't slice bamboo diagonally, they slice it in a straight line, and how it's unrealistic because there was no samurai, we don't know if Yasuke was actually a samurai, and all these stupid reasons. That is not why you're playing the game.
True.
This is a fantasy game, and we knew that it was going to be so fun. We knew that this was going to bring back so much of what we know and love of Assassin's Creed, and I think they executed. I really think that they sought out to make a giant-ass game that is so fun to play, and it was smooth. The delays that they put in helped so much. I think I had one crash the entire time. I barely had any bugs.
Yeah.
So honestly, hats off to Ubisoft for this one, because I really, really enjoyed this game, and everybody I've talked to has the same thought.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what you said. I really do believe that say what you want, maybe they locked in because they needed to, because they were, things were getting to be a little dire over at Ubisoft or whatever, but they locked in. They delivered, they made like, best way to put it, they made an excellent video game. It's a great game. And you know, whether or not how it fits into Assassin's Creed and all this other stuff is almost secondary for what this game
it's like picky at that point.
It is. For what this needed to be for this company and for this franchise, they delivered. I think, you know, it was 100%. Interesting. It was interesting. We've talked about gameplay in length, and if you guys want to hear our thoughts on it, check out our last podcast now, like 2 months ago. We just went into our first gameplay impressions and stuff like that. But we love the gameplay. I love the map. I love the characters. I love the story. I really love so much about this game. And I don't know if this makes sense or makes me a hypocrite or whatever, but every time I play this game, I forget I'm playing Assassin's Creed. Kind of like it to me, I think the most similar, like, this game is the most similar to Odyssey, I would say, is how I would describe it. I don't know why, but I think the visuals, the way they set up the open world, all this stuff, it's kind of a mix of all the RPGs, but in a way it reminded me the most of Odyssey. But I really do, I guess, like you said, going back to those rankings, it's not my number one. I mean, Valhalla will always be my number one. I don't even think it's my number two, but it's seriously falling in that number 3, number 4 range. It's in my top 5 favorite Assassin's Creed games. It is so polished, and it's so funny because I can actually point to the big flaws in this game that would make it my number one. Like, the pathway was there. If they delivered on some of the story beats and some of the Assassin's Creed stuff, namely like the modern day and stuff, like, if they delivered, this would, without a doubt, be my favorite Assassin's Creed game. That's just a testament to how good the gameplay is, how beautiful the graphics are, how much I love just being in this world. Is the best in every way of any Assassin's Creed, no doubt. I think this game falls short in its Assassin's Creediness and in its story. So, for me, that's where I would point to the biggest flaws. Certainly not in the gameplay or the visuals or the art direction or the world or anything like that. It's just the story, and I want to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of let's start with like the highlights. Let's start with gameplay, because obviously when you you and I think made a video when we had played a few hours of the game, and you know, when you're that far, you don't get to every mechanic, and so, you know, first impressions were amazing. Mm-hmm. Having finished the game, my impressions on the gameplay is that's why you play the game.
Yes.
This is the most fluid, the funnest, you know, and it's brutal and it's accurate and it's sharp. This is such fun gameplay. Like, this, sometimes you hear from Assassin's Creed, you know, players, oh, well, is it a good RPG or is it a good Assassin's Creed game? Because they kind of see it as like, there's a difference. Because like Assassin's Creed RPGs, as like in the world of other RPGs, are seen as mediocre. Mm-hmm. And I disagree on a lot, you know, not for every single one. But when you're holding it up to Red Dead 2 and The Witcher and Cyberpunk and these other games, you know, people think that they're not on that level. And I'd agree to some extent. And so for this one, though, for gameplay, it really, really hits the mark.
Yeah.
The dual protagonist was the smartest decision they could have made when it comes to gameplay, where you don't have a one-size-fits-all assassin that's insanely talented at combat and in stealth, because that just doesn't make sense. They kind of made that mistake mostly, I think, in Valhalla, and you could say with Odyssey as well, where, you know, they start to get mechanics where, you know, weapons will shrink on you when you, like, oh, you have this giant staff, but for the sake of movement when you're stealthy, it shrinks on your back like it's a magical weapon. Or like Eivor with his infinite axes that he throws at you and things like that. There's just game mechanics that it's like you can't really have both, but they did, and it's fun. But I mean, you know, because you feel like a god.
Yep.
But, you know, for them to kind of go back to okay, well, hold on, these people aren't Isu. This is a ninja and, you know, assassin, and this is a samurai. They really made it realistic, I think, as far as the combat goes. They kind of came back a little bit. And with Basim, right, with Assassin's Creed Mirage, they brought it back as well and said, hey, this is an assassin. He wears no armor. He's got a short sword and a dagger and a hidden blade. Like, if you get 3 guys on you, 3, guards, run away.
Run.
We've given you a myriad of tools to run away. And so that's true with Naue. She can still fight, and she's got her samurai sword and her she's got other weapons. And so it's definitely an option. If you want a challenge, just switch to Naue. If you don't want a challenge, then be Yasuke. It was so great. I do have 2 things I want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
One was the mechanic of calling allies. There's a mechanic in this where you can summon allies. However, I am pretty sure that you can only access them via side missions. That's not part of the main story. You will get one of your assassin allies via the main story, where it's like, this is what you have to do before you move on to the next part. But everybody else is side mission. And I know this because I didn't get another one at all. I have one assassin ally, and it's the one that you get in the main story. I didn't know where to go to find the other ones. I think one of them is like the daughter of that archer master.
Yep.
I think that's one of them.
Yep.
And I think maybe another one, and Johnny, maybe both you and I missed out on this one. I'm almost sure that, and obviously spoilers, that we shouldn't have to say that. There's this thief boy that you work with in the main story of the game, and if you're playing in canon mode, he dies at the end. He commits suicide by blowing up a giant thing of rice reserves.
Yep.
To kind of get back at the system. And he lives. If you don't play in canon mode, you can have an option where he lives, and I'm pretty positive he can be an assassin.
No way.
I am almost positive, and y'all have to verify this. I'm not going to take the time to do it right now. We've already started, but I'm pretty positive I've seen people use him, and I have friends that have played in non-canon mode, and he lives, and so, I don't love that, because it's like, dang it, I don't have the option to have him because I played in canon mode. I feel like I'm being punished for playing in canon mode. So that mechanic really missed for me. I never used that chick, the one that I had. I never used her. Every now and then, because I just forgot about it, and that's my own fault. But the fact that you can only get them via side missions was kind of strange. I figured that the other ones would open up later in the story, and they never did.
Let me kind of step in here, because
keep in here.
I don't know about you. I have like 65 hours on this game now, close to between 65.
I'm at like 55.
Yeah. I have done all these side missions. I have them all.
Wow. I'm so slow. I haven't done like any side missions, and I'm at 55
Well,
hours.
I've been kind of, I finished the game in probably like 30 hours, and I've been just kind of running around the map. Yeah, so I've been kind of just doing what I can. And so I have, and all these people, I have to say, I kind of disagree with you here, because, my first point is, in Brotherhood, for example, I think it was the first game to introduce this mechanic where you call in your buddies. You never need to use it. It was never a necessity to use it, but it made stealth easier. And I think that, so one of the allies, for example, puts people to sleep. Another one comes in and hidden blades them. When you start using them in ways, it actually gets really fun, and you actually can upgrade them. So you unlock abilities as you can level them up. You can train them in the dojo, in your hideout or whatever they call it. You upgrade your dojo, and they can get to level 2 and 3 of their abilities. You unlock more outfits for them and stuff. It's actually a pretty deep system, and it gets to be really, really fun. And I think that actually just goes well with this game. And what you were talking about with gameplay was smooth. And you said in our last video about how, the devs kind of just said, should this be able to, why can't you do this? Let's just make it so that you can you can be so creative with this game. And I think that this mechanic, while yes, you absolutely don't need to use it, because like you, I didn't use it in the story because I hadn't gotten there yet. I went and did all the side missions after. But it's just another way to do stealth. It's just, you can be so much more creative, and you can't use them all. So you have to pick and choose which allies you want. You can use 2 or 3 at a time, and that plays, some play better in combat and some play much better in stealth. So you get to really kind of, it just adds even more layers to the stealth. So I actually think this is a really, really cool mechanic. But I think...
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a negative. It's just one of those, like, if I were to make a video of, here are the 3 things I wish I would have known before playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, that would be one of them. Because I wanted to use them, and I figured they would come up eventually, and then they never did.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of a side. It's you have to go do side missions to do it, and also you mentioned the dojo. You have to upgrade the dojo to get more.
Mm-hmm.
That is extremely difficult.
Yes.
Like the amount of resources you need to upgrade that building 3 times to get you another slot to get more, assassins or whatever. I never got there. I remember I was actively trying to get there, and it took me so long because you're using those resources for other upgrades as well, and so you have to pick and choose. And so unless your play style is very much doing as many side quests as kind of you can, and doing fortresses along the way, that's how I am.
Yeah.
Then you're not going to know. And so I actually didn't quite figure out the dojo mechanic until later in the game.
Me neither.
Otherwise, I would have allocated more of my resources to it.
Yeah.
I was trying to beautify my homestead. I was wasting too many materials on
I haven't placed
buildings that didn't matter.
flower. I haven't placed a flower. I haven't placed a rock. Mine is just the buildings.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I did that for like hours one day. I think I was listening to like an audiobook, and so I was just messing around.
I got to get to it eventually.
I built out a whole thing.
But yeah, you need to grind. And you need to get wood. That's what I keep running into. Is I don't have enough wood. And you have to grind.
Really?
You have to grind these castles, and you have to use all these scouts, and you have to refill your scouts, which I don't mind the scout mechanic. I think I have 5 or 6 now that I can use, so like you can get them enough, but you have to keep refilling your scouts, and you have to wait until the season changes just to get your materials, so then you can upgrade the dojo, so then you can upgrade your assassin buddy. So it's very layered, it's very grindy. I don't mind it.
And I'm okay with not using every mechanic, like you said. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
If you're using every single mechanic in the game throughout the game, it's going to get old.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I'll give an example. One of my favorite games on this planet is the Guardians of the Galaxy video game. It's so freaking fun. But halfway through the game, you are now fully fledged. You are using every game mechanic, and you've got a bunch of hours to go using all of those same mechanics. And it kind of, towards the end, you're like, I'm ready to be done. Luckily, it ended right when that happened. But, in this, I feel like there's a lot of game mechanics that I know there's a lot of game mechanics and a lot of weapons that I did not really use. And so that'll bring me to my last thing in the gameplay of basically everything is phenomenal. Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. Everything is phenomenal gameplay-wise. My critiques are tiny. And one of them is the skill tree. I think the skill tree is so whack. I had a hard time understanding when it would move on to the next zone. And I eventually figured out you have to get like the skill points from doing the temples and things like that. And it's just tedious. And then I feel like the upgrades weren't really doing anything for me unless it was like the big ones that add a new ability. But then even then, you have to pick and choose which ones you want, which again is good because it's gonna you have a build that you're building out. But I didn't know, the skill tree was just a little odd for me the whole time, and I still think to this day like the best skill tree was like Odyssey. Honestly, I think made the most sense where you still have to pick and choose what abilities you use, but the skill tree was like reasonable and made sense. So the skill tree was whack. And then one thing, this is small, but it pisses me off. I cannot change the time of day. I was late. This happened a lot to me, but I was late in the game. I was trying to find one of the last assassin hideouts.
Yes.
And I would move my PlayStation to like my projector and then like my monitor down here and then my TV upstairs. And it would like have HDR mode on. And so I was here at my desk streaming, trying to play this, just raging out of my mind because it was so effing dark that I couldn't see where I needed to go next, and I couldn't climb anything because you can't climb rocks. I was stuck, but I knew I had to be right there, and it was so dark. I was just like walking into a wall half the time, and then finally found that I had to like crouch into this tiny cave, and it was just like, I can't see, but I can't change the time of day, and I can't fast travel back to this spot. I'd have to do the whole thing again.
Yeah.
And so it was just so dark, and for me it was like HDR. But I just like, let me change the time of day. And like, if I want to do a stealth, of a base, I don't want to do it in daytime because I'm going to be seen a lot easier, but I don't want to do it as Yasuke. Let me just move to nighttime so then I can do this base at nighttime. You don't have that option. So, and I think that's such a simple mechanic. They've had it in so many of their games up to this point. Why take it out?
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, those are my only negatives. Johnny, do you have any other negatives gameplay?
Well, negatives, I have really stupid ones, but like The fact that you can't climb and everything, I think, is really interesting. In one way, I like it because it's like way more realistic. And another way, it can be so goddamn annoying. Just let me get up to that sink point instead of running around this whole mountain and falling down these rocks. And it's a constant battle in this game where I'm like, this is really cool because there's dedicated paths and there's places they want you to go, and it's like way more realistic. But also, like, God damn it, it's not convenient for the gameplay. Like, it's such a funny one that's like, it's sad. If you haven't played the game, it sounds niche. If you have played the game, you know 100% what I'm talking about. So, and I get it why they did it. I kind of just want them to go back to how it was. As unrealistic as it was, it's kind of a necessary evil for the game to function properly. But it did make
I feel like I wasn't able to like properly explore because more often than not, it's either there's a freaking mountain cliff in my way and I just have to take the path.
Yes.
This is a game that it's like God of War. Like you can't do any. No. Don't climb that mountain. I know you can technically go through the trees for a little bit. Your horse is going to clip on everything. Do not take your horse into a forest. You will regret your life and you will want to murder your horse.
Yeah.
But then you're on foot and you can't see anything because there's just bushes and bamboo and everything in your face. So it's like, why even let us do that? And so it almost becomes linear because you're so forced to take all the pathways. Luckily, there's a path follow system. But anyways, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I think stay on the path, like you said, no horses and all that. But I think overall that the kind of traversal stuff is good. And I think they've updated it where you can climb a little better now. So since I've been playing, it was definitely the worst at launch. So it is a little bit better now. But I did want to touch on the skill tree thing because I have to give them props for making 6 separate skill trees per character.
Yeah, very cool.
You have 3 weapon skill trees. You have 3 character skill trees for both characters. I think that's really, and you can really customize how you want to play. I went really hard on the assassin side of thing instead of shinobi because I usually play Naue as, super stealthy. Whereas, like, I didn't go with the bow with Yasuke. I went more so for the samurai stuff where, I went more combat. So you can pick and choose. But I am at the point now where I'm maxed out on my skill trees and I've done all my knowledge points and stuff like that. And I have all the abilities, and the stealth gets crazy where you get like the ranged chain stealth stuff and the double assassinations and all this crazy fun stuff. It was only when I saw I can go to the next knowledge experience level. And I was like, what does this even do now? There's no more skills to unlock. And I went over and I clicked on it, and it opened up a whole new skill tree for Naue of like, I don't even know if you've done this. I only figured it out like 5 hours ago, like 50 hours into the game. I clicked this thing, and it's like you can increase her charged attacks by 1%, and you can do it like a million, because I was also getting to the point where I wasn't damaging people with normal attacks. I had to use abilities and I was like, well, this is weird. And I realized there's a whole chunk of like 12 squares that you can now put your knowledge points toward and like upgrade their normal combat. I had no idea this existed. That was for both characters, and I missed out on that the entire. So I think there's definitely, they could have done a little better of explaining some mechanics and stuff. A lot of it is hidden. A lot of it's hard to find. Like, I mean, even the Battle Pass project thing I was explaining to you about before the pod started here was like there is a Battle Pass you can use for these characters. You collect these collectibles around the map. You do these little missions with the Animus, and you get these keys, and you have to find your way to the Battle Pass. I got it once. I remember I was like scrolling through the Battle Pass, and then I forgot how to get there, and it took me like another 3 weeks to be like, oh yeah, this is how I get there. Like, I think there's a lot of little things like that like could have been tweaked or could have been polished a little better, could have been explained a little more. But overall, like in terms of like stealth, parkour, combat, map, especially the map, like I'm blown away. Above and beyond the best Assassin's Creed gameplay wise, bar none, not close. And also, my last point on gameplay, which I really appreciate, is the gear and the way they give them. Some of the engravings are like 3% attack, 3% charge, a little bit more stealthy at night, and that's all fine and good. But the legendary engravings you get, some of them are crazy. Like I remember you told me about the one where Yasuke can parry unblockables. That's really cool.
Yeah, that like almost broke the game for me.
Yeah, there's another one where Yasuke can reflect all projectiles if you parry at the right time. There's one where Naue, when she assassinates one guy, she chain assassinates a guy across the way, another guy in her area just with a kunai. Like there's all these little things that like that's really impactful in the gameplay, and it's tied to this one like gear piece. So I thought the gear system, the upgrading system is pretty cool in this game. So
the one thing that really bugged me about the gear system, and I think I told you about this already, was Naoe's outfits were fire. Like, and she had a ton of them.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, I had dozens of fire Naoe outfits, hats, shirts, pants. I don't have pants,
all
but
of it,
all the weapons and armor. I had a ton of them. Yasuke, I do not know if it was just me, but I only had 10 options.
Yeah.
And that was like from 5 hours into Yasuke up until the end of the game. I had 10 options. And like I'd get once in a blue moon, I get a new thing, and it's just like a different color of one that already exists. Yep. It's like, oh yeah, this is another Ronin skin. It looks just like the other Ronin skin. It's a different color, or the hat is a little bit different. But there was never outfits that I was like, yo, look at this Yasuke outfit, and I was so excited to see more samurai. Like I feel like they can be more creative with samurai outfits. But nothing, like there was no options for me. And so like majority of the game, I was like, I had, I think, his original outfit. I didn't have that armor set, but I made it look like his original armor set. And then halfway through the game, I looked like the Ronin. There's like a Ronin set. I think that puts you at like 50% health, but you do double damage or something.
That one's fire, yeah.
I made it look like that. And then at the end of the game, you get Templar outfit, and I wore that
one's
at the dead end of the game.
Yeah,
that one's sick. But there's like there was no other options. That was it. And so I felt so limited as Yasuke just visually.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why. Maybe this is just me. Beginning of the game, I was getting cooked by everybody. I get it. It's the start. Middle of the game, I was a god. I was unstoppable. Both as Naoe and Yasuke. I felt really, really powerful as long as I kept my stuff up to date. Oh my gosh, at the end of the game, even if I had all my stuff up to my level, I was getting cooked alive. And I wouldn't take a ton of damage. Like, I wouldn't die easily, but everybody was sponges. Like, even the basic enemies, I would hit 100 times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 10 guys on me, and I'll survive because I have a lot of health and, and good abilities, but oh my gosh, this is going to take 10 minutes to get these 10 guys because of how spongy they are. Did you have that at all?
I had a bit of that. Yeah, I did, especially with Yasuke. It's funny, earlier you said, like, if you want to be on easy, like, brain dead mode, go with Yasuke through a base, and if you want to, like, try and figure it out, go with Naoe. It was absolutely that way for me in the first 30 hours of the game. It is now completely switched because of all these engravings and all this other stuff where you can do with Naoe. Like, my kunais are crazy powerful. I can kill big enemies with one kunai, like in stealth. I can fully assassinate like the what do you call them? The
Daisho ones or whatever.
The Daishos. I can fully just one hit them, and this is the cool part stuff I'm talking about. Where like running assassinate, you can have now at like +2. Like chunks of their health is gone, or like at night you add another chunk, so you can compound all of this into like some really cool builds if you get the right gear pieces on. So to the point where like Naoe now is much more overpowered for me than Yasuke is, because Yasuke, you gotta fight him no matter what. Naoe, I'm one-shotting everybody, and it's really fun, and the stealth is really fun. So I think overall you and me both agree this is the best.
Gameplay's great.
This is the best Assassin's Creed in terms of a gameplay, bar none, graphically as well.
Yep. Oh my gosh, the graphics are the most next-gen graphics I think I've ever seen.
This is the prettiest game I've ever played. Not close.
I don't want to hear people talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 ever again. I don't want to hear God of War. Those are pretty games, don't get me wrong, but they do not hold a candlelight to this game. And if you disagree, it's because you haven't played the game.
Bingo. Especially Ghost of Tsushima. Oh my God, this game, and I get it, that was made 5 years ago or whatever, but this is the best looking game I have ever touched.
It's insane.
It is insane.
The longer you look at it, the more detail you realize exists.
Every time I open it up, I go, holy shit, this is nuts. No wonder it took them so long to make it, because it is breathtaking. You can take a picture anywhere on the map and it looks unbelievable. It doesn't matter if you're in a little town or on a mountain or in the trees or in the forest. The lighting, the colors, the wind, the environment, it's nuts. And that's the last I'll say about that, because I could go on forever on the graphics. It's
gorgeous game.
Arguably the best part of the game. But okay, let's do story, because we've not talked about this at all. This is what this podcast is about. It's very important to us too, because let me just preface this by saying we had made a whole half-hour bit in previous episodes talking about what we want this to look like, what we want from this story, and how this dual protagonist thing is going to go, how the pacing, I wanted it to be a little different from Valhalla and like a meaningful in the mission structure and all this stuff. And I have to say, overall, on everything I just said, I'm like disappointed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I just, what are your initial impressions? I'll go into my disappointment in a bit.
Well, it's funny hearing Johnny talk about it, because that's exactly how I felt. Like, and I'm sure you agree, the first half of this game, they effing cooked. The beginning of Assassin's Creed Shadows, the story is phenomenal. The intro, the prologue, and with Odu Nobunaga, and they hit beat after beat so well, and it was paced so well, and then they introduce Yasuke, and they kind of team up, right? And they kind of create the assassins, essentially. And then I think, for me, it was like 5 hours after that, where, you're starting to play as Yasuke. The story just took a wild left turn, and it started to become, for me, just kind of confusing and lackluster. If I'm going to compare it to anything, I'll compare it to Assassin's Creed Valhalla with, I call them the kingdom missions, how you had to go to kingdom and do all these, essentially side missions, but they're part of the main story. And they're self-contained. And then they kind of come together at the end, but not all of them. There's like some alliances that are made where some characters from this kingdom mission, team up with these guys, whatever, right? And so
Valhalla.
It's similar to that, but honestly, it wasn't even as notable. There were some missions and some characters that were like, okay, yeah, like I feel this story. It's palpable. I get it. Like, this is cool. If I compare it to Valhalla, for me, that was like the Jorvik mission. Very memorable. Very,
Halfdan,
and with like his younger brothers as well. Those missions early on in Mercia, I think is the area. Great. But then there were others that not great, but that's kind of how it's going to be naturally, I think. But there was something about this game, and to me, I mean, I obviously we're playing it in English, but there's so many names that are so non-memorable to me because I'm not Japanese and I don't know who's who.
Yeah.
There's so many names and so many people that they throw at you.
Yes.
You're having to meet 10 new people in each area, and you're like, should I care about you? Are you important? Or are you just going to go away the second I leave this territory? And, you don't know. And then, like, when a character returns, you're like, wait a minute, you're kind of familiar. Which one are you, which mission are you from?
Who are you again?
So, like, the character models, a lot of them are very similar. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just me, but that's how, compared to Valhalla, it's like, no, I know exactly all of, like, the kind of the main characters.
Yes.
There's, like, 1 to 3 main characters per area, and they're all very memorable, and you can kind of tell which ones are going to keep coming back and which ones aren't. And in this one, it was just like, wait, who matters and who doesn't, and who is going to be a part of this, this team, who's going to be their enemies. So kind of middle of the game, that's how I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest issue that this game has is it's the lack of linearity really hurts it, because and you have that giant objective board, which to me I would bet my life they came up with this concept before Mirage had it, because it fits so much better in this game, because you have so many different sects and circles of people to assassinate, and I really like that. I loved getting rid of a whole circle. You feel like an assassin. You're like, I'm assassinating these people. And that the assassin part of this game is great, because you talk to somebody, they're like, these pirates are giving us trouble. You have to go and assassinate all these 5 pirates. Great. But what does that matter to the story? And that was the main story. You go through, you assassinate all these rings of people. And so to me, I don't know if I did it wrong. I don't know. So I went through, I'd say I got to Yasuke after about 7 hours, and I agree with you, it was so heat up to that point. One of my favorite Assassin's Creed missions ever was when you the big twist with Oda Nobunaga and Yasuke and all this other stuff, and now I got played, and then all the what's the little runt's name? I loved him. Junjiro.
Yeah.
The Junjiro scene was amazing, and then it was like, here we go. We started this group of assassins, and then so you could either do the Naoe Yasuke story, or you could do the Shinbaku story. And I think that is a crime separating them, because what I did, kind of unknowingly, I went through and just did all the Shinbaku as fast as I could. And then I'd say like when I was like level 30, so literally like 25 hours into the game, I found the last Kujikiri thing for Naoe.
Yep.
And I find out about Hanzo, and I'm like, there's a story. Like it's not just assassinating groups of people for 30 hours. And so this is where I think my playthrough genuinely, like, I enjoyed the first 20 hours of just like assassinating people and like killing the Shinbaku. It felt very Assassin's Creed. I was like, great. But I know nothing about these characters. Nothing. And then once I hit that mission with Naoe, where you see her meeting with the Kakushiba Iki or whatever they're called in Iga, and they're talking about it, and then her mom's referenced as to starting all this, and Hanzo comes in, and it's like, whoa, I'm 30 hours into this game, and I'm just getting some character. I'm just getting some real meaning. I loved that. I loved that part. That's where I was like, what the hell? And it all was because I didn't find one of the Kujikiri. I literally, it wasn't on my map until I hit some part of a main mission, some part of a story. The little icon showed up, little red thing, and I was like, oh, there it is. Because for so many hours, I had been like 3 out of 4, right, for Naoe, and I was stuck after like 3 of her little story missions, and I hit that 4th one, and everything came together. And then, so for me, it was all spread out. And I fully agree with you, by the way, about the character thing, especially if there was a bald guy. Dude, they were all the same person. I didn't remember a single name, and some of them were important, and some of them weren't, and it was all a mess in my head. Whereas like Uba, Ivar, Halfdan, what's his name, Alfred, and there were so many cool characters in Valhalla.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just like a cultural thing that my brain's not attuned to, but I couldn't keep them straight of who was who and who's important. I remember Hong.
Well, and I'll compare it shortly, and I won't do this a lot, but to Ghost of Tsushima. I did not have an issue keeping track of characters in Ghost of Tsushima, and there were a lot.
Okay.
There were a lot. Some are allies, some are enemies. And like even Ronin and stuff like that, like in Ghost of Tsushima, you have like a friend you grew up with that is now a Ronin. Like, and every character felt vital. They felt important. They had their story to play out. Whether they lived or died, they had their story to play out.
Yep.
And it was a part of you. They were a part of you. And this was like, do you matter? Do you not? Like, are you going to help? Like, and if you help me, you're never going to come back again. You're not there. There is no.
Or are you?
Oh, we've created this group of allies. Like, that's what I liked about Valhalla. We've created this group of allies and sometimes enemies throughout doing these. And they don't all come together like the Avengers in the end or anything like that. But there are missions that there's comebacks to certain characters, and there's references to things that have happened in other kingdoms during your gameplay, not 100 years prior.
Yes.
So like a lot of the referencing, they were talking about a war that had happened decades ago, or at least a bunch of years ago. And it's like, I don't know what's relevant to today or to me. I don't know how much of an impact I have, because that's one of my favorite things of, a lot of these games. Ezio, Connor, Edward, you're making an impact, and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, not just the Templars, but like people are starting to learn about who you are. And I loved, by the way, the name drop of when you're learning about the Templars.
Oh.
And the priest guy who's a friend of Yasuke was like, yeah, just a few years ago, which is exactly right with the timeline. There was a sect of Templars that really gained power, and the Pope was the leader of these Templars, and there was this mysterious organization that was like their downfall, and all this stuff. It's like, what? Yeah,
I was beaming.
They made a freaking impact.
Yeah.
Connor was like a devil walking amongst men. Like, that people were terrified of him. They knew about him.
I have to say really quickly, as you do go through the game, Like, people know who Naue is. When you walk up to someone and like, you're the assassin who's doing this. And you, especially when you were Yasuke, everybody knew Yasuke. So I have to say, like,
yes, you felt known as Yasuke.
It was cool when like you did gain a little more, because in the beginning missions, you'd start as Naue and they'd be like, oh, what are you going to do with your little ragtag band of assassins? We're not afraid of you. When you get to the end of it, the guys you were facing were like, I've heard of you. You've killed all my friends or whatever. And that was kind of cool. But they did reference this one, I don't even remember the name of it, but like this war that happened forever ago. And they referenced it like a billion times. And I was like, I don't know what that is.
And I only knew as much as I did about it because when you scan, you can like zoom in and scan certain areas and it says like, oh, like Mickey Castle. Mickey Castle is important in history because, and then it's just written. It's like in the data logs, and you can read it while you're there. I'm such a history guy, and this is why I love AC games, that I actually read a lot of those, a lot of those history things, and so I learned a lot, like specifically Mickey Castle. That was a big pivotal area in this huge war that happened with, I think, Mitsuhide or whatever. I don't even know if I'm saying the right one of the M names. And some big war. But it's like all the names are like similar but different and long and hard to pronounce. I don't remember them. And characters look similar and
Yeah, it was it was separated into, well, you had side missions, which is fine. Everything has side missions. But you have side missions. You had the Shinbaku, which is your main assassin ring, and then you had their individual character missions. And they very rarely actually intertwined. Like, very rarely would Naue's story be needed to play through before you do the next guy on your list of people to assassinate. And I think that's a huge mistake because it really segments the story. It makes it feel like, oh, that doesn't matter for this. I didn't know what to do first. It's really what made the game so paced so strangely to me, like I said, where like I didn't get Naue's story until 30 hours in, and then I plowed through it, and I was like, this is great. So do you think it's fair to say that the story is broken down into those two things, Shinbaku stuff, and then them as like assassin buddies and killing each other, and then the other half is like their stories individually, right? I'd say that's how the game's kind of broken up. So I want to go.
Yeah.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Notable in this?
Say that one more time.
Oh, sorry. I do think that the side missions are a lot more notable. I felt more connected to these side. I didn't do a ton of side missions, but those that I did, I was like, that was a cool little story.
I agree.
Like, I liked that.
Yeah.
And I connected with a lot of the characters. I think some of the best characters are in the side missions.
Yes.
Which is good. That's good for the sake of side missions. They're not just garbage.
I agree.
But yeah, it really is, Shinbaku, and then like Naue and Yasuke, and then everything else.
Yeah.
I guess Templars, but Templars come at, like,
Templars
you do the Shinbaku.
is like Yasuke's story in my head.
Yes, but in my head, I thought it was like the next step. Because like I kind of saw this grand picture of like, you've got the Shinbaku and you take them out, and then you realize at the end, and so we'll kind of transition to the ending of this story now, because we talked about the first half. Let's talk about the second half. You kill all the Shinbaku, and then I thought that it was going to naturally lead into like, oh no, they were similar to Assassin's Creed Origins, okay, because you take out everyone in that tree, and then you realize, oh, hold on, there's like 4 guys at the very top of this that I didn't know about. And, one of them is like right-hand man to Caesar himself and all this stuff. And that was cool. That was a cool reveal. So having the Templars be revealed, I was like, oh, yes, here we go.
Yes,
this is like
I was
traditional
locked.
Assassin's Creed. You've got real Templars. They've got connections worldwide.
These like Portuguese
guys. The Spaniards are in Japan.
Yes.
You have to have the Templars as the Spaniards coming in and trying to, get their roots in Japan, and that's exactly what was happening.
They're Portuguese, but same thing.
Or same thing. They're right there next to each other.
Yeah, same thing.
No one come at me in the comments. But yeah, the Portuguese are there, and like that's their opportunity, and that's what they did. And I liked that the leaders of the Templars were over the Shinbaku, kind of like the Shinbaku were really fearful of the Templars, but. I think that they're still leading to something. I don't think that it's completely done, and we'll get into this in a minute. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. But at the end, when he kills that final Templar, he says that he's declaring war on the Templars.
Right.
I really like that. So I think that Yasuke has a vision of And I'm hoping that he communicates. There's a scene of him talking about this to Naue, because Naue's on her own different plane. Like they've got two different objectives. They're so different. And so I'm hoping they can get on the same page and be like, hey, there's a bigger thing here. And I'm hoping that there's like another invasion of Templars. Who knows? Like the Templars they're getting pissed. And the last Templar that dies mentions that. He's like, when they find out that you did this, they're going to be so mad. And then he says something like, when they see what I do to you, they'll run away.
Yeah.
You know, like
Sick.
they won't come to
Cool.
pick a fight. So yeah, I loved it. But let's talk about the Shinbaku just for a second. What did you think of the reveal at the end of who the top Shinbaku was, the weird mask guy?
I thought it was very predictable. I thought...
Really?
Oh, yeah. Let me explain why. So most of the Shinbaku were very Assassin's Creed-y. You learn something about him from this guy. You help this other guy. She tells you about him. You find your way into the castle. You help these people, and then you take them down through all these series of missions. That was like 8 or 9 of them. Fine, that's all well and good. They were always building Mitsuhide up as the big boss. Always, from the beginning. From when he deceived Naue in the beginning, from when he tricked her, and then it was always shown right there. This is Mitsuhide, you know who he is the whole time. And then there's a little masked guy next to him who's like supposedly the head of it. So in my head, it was always leading to Mitsuhide. And then in one of the first or second Shinbaku missions, you meet the Shogun. He walks up to you.
Yeah.
He talks to you, and I remember being in my head, I was like, that's not random. Like, that is totally on purpose. And I didn't think at that point he was the guy in the mask, but as it was getting down to it, and there was that big cutscene with Mitsuhide at the end, and it was like feeling like it was over, I was like, this is oddly similar to 2 of the previous Assassin's Creed games. You have Aspasia in Odyssey, who's like, who's the big bad? And it's like, oh, it's just Aspasia. Like, we've known her the whole time. Of course, it's her. And like, she had whatever evil intentions, but we worked with her kind of throughout the story. And it's like, it's not like a true villain, right? Is the main guy. It's Aspasia. We knew her for the whole story. You go to Valhalla, and it's the poor soldier of Christ. Poor soldier of Christ. Poor soldier of Christ. It's got to be King Alfred, right? It's got to be King Alfred. And then you go through this whole big killing of the second to last guy, I forget who it is. Kill me now. I miss Valhalla dearly. But, and then you go on to, and then the game feels over, and you have to go through this whole extra long mission to get to Alfred. And Alfred tells you, he's like, I'm trying to reset the Templar Order here. I'm trying to get rid of the Ancient Ones. I'm trying to make this the Templars. That's Alfred's whole role, which is sick. He's one of the coolest villains in any game I've ever played, and I could talk about it forever. But anyway, there's no big fight with him at the end. It's very anticlimactic. Same with Aspasia. Same with Alfred. And then, so I was pretty ready for like the final mission, the final boss to be Mitsuhide, and then the guy in the mask would be somebody kind of ancillary. When I killed Mitsuhide, I remembered that time where the Shogun walked up to us, and I was like, why is this? I remember thinking about it like, the Shogun, like the head of Japan, like the top, like all these other guys, say what you want. Like even like Oda was below the Shogun. This is the Shogun. He's like the top dog. And so I was like, that's not random. So right after I killed Mitsuhide, I say it in my playthrough. You can go on YouTube and watch. I go, I bet it's the Shogun. I said, I bet it's the Shogun. And he's going to sit there and he's going to have I thought he was going to have like a Alfred reasoning where he's like, I'm not really bad. Turns out he was really bad. And like, he like basically paid them off in the end or something like that. I forget exactly how it went, but it was. Sorry, say that again. Your mic keeps cutting out right after I'm done talking.
Yeah, sorry. I think my mic keeps cutting out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of makes a deal with the devil at the end where he's like, look, if you spare me, like I'm gonna not do this anymore. I'm gonna go away. But just so you know, I'm not the big bad here. It's the Templars, and I was doing all of this, for them to
right.
Spare my own life and to protect my own power. And so then you realize that there's a bigger bad, which Naue couldn't care less. Naue's like done.
Right, she's done.
It's just Yasuke now who's going after the Templars.
Right, and I just want to quickly on the Templar thing. I found it to be somewhat anticlimactic. I wish more of it, and this goes back to, again, it's just Yasuke's story, which is like, bro, at this point, I'm 40 hours in, and I'm just getting to the parts where Yasuke's having like these horrible flashbacks to his time as a slave with these Portuguese guys, and it's like, this is the story. Like, this is the story of the game. These are the characters' story, and You kill 4 Templars. I did it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then it's over. And it's like, that was the big bad. That was the... I wish the whole Shinbaku ring was Templars, or like a mix of them, or it felt like such a, oh, we forgot to do this at the end. Here we go. Yasuke needs a story. And it was like, oh, this is where my disappointment comes, is it felt like the RPG open world killing these rings of people was the main game, and the characters and the character arcs of Naoe and Yasuke were afterthoughts. And that to me is totally backward, and I wish it was flip-flopped the other way, where we had 30 hours of real story, and then you kill the Shinbaku. In the midst of that, somehow it fits into the story in a smaller way. I think that's why it fell a little flat to me, the story. I loved their individual stories when they got into it. I loved the emotion they showed when her dad died, and she learning about her mom and how she started the Kakushiba Iki, and Hanzo was the coolest character. I loved when there were stories were on screen, and I loved Yasuke's stuff where he was coming up with Oda and all this other stuff. I loved it, but it was sadly like a total of like 7 hours of this 40-hour story, and I needed way more of that. So
yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot, like, after that halfway point, the pacing of this game just hits the fan.
Yes,
they're just doing their own like, there's too much going on, and it's not that there's too much content, it's not that the game's too long, it's not that there's too many bad guys. It's how they went about revealing the story and telling the story. So I'll give an example of a good way to do it, and then how they did it. Or I guess like the bad thing that they did, and I didn't like this in the very intro, is when Naoe's father dies. You've got the whole effing lineup of all, 12,
yep.
15, who knows? There's so many of them. Shinbaku sitting there, all in their, creepy masks, whatever, like it's some, cult gathering. And so it's like, okay, well, there's my hit list right there before me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what that is. Okay, I have to kill every single one of you. I get it.
Yep.
And they reveal it, like, all in one giant circle, and it's so daunting. Like, you've got this huge circle, and there's going to be one person per area. I get it. That's how it works. But don't show the whole thing to me right out of the gate. You have no mystery involved. The only mystery involved was at the end, towards the end, when you find out, oh, there's Templars involved in this.
Yes.
And then they reveal late game, oh, there's a little Templar order here. I liked that a lot. Give that to me for the Shinbaku. Maybe have like the leader show up at the Shinbaku and then like 2 other guys. But there's 2 ways to do it that they've done in the past that worked really well. One, in Origins, where you think that you've got all of them, and you don't. And that happens a few times. Like, you think you got the guy who killed your son,
yep.
But then you find out that he's part of a larger organization, and so it reveals like another level of like, oh no, there's people that are like in other parts of Egypt that are a part of this. And he's like, I need to root out all this evil. I got the guy who actually killed, that was actually there that night, but I need to, as a duty to my son and to Egypt, I got to uproot all this. And then at the very end, you realize that there's just like 2 or 3 more right at the top there, just as one final plot twist. The other way to do it that was really well done, in my opinion, was the Order of Ancients, or the Cult of Cosmos in Odyssey, where it's like you do know how many of that, you can see how many there are. They're not revealing new ones. But you have to go and investigate. I loved that.
Yeah.
I love that mechanic of saying, like, we don't know. Like, if you hover, it'll just say, we know nothing, go explore. Or if you have kind of played a little bit of the game in that area, it'll say, more information is in Athens or on Skiros Island or whatever. Like, go there and explore. And you go there and you don't know what to do. You just kind of do some side quests, and then you find out that some side quests are relevant to that guy and some aren't. And then eventually, through gathering clues, you find out, oh, look, it's this guy. Whether you know him or not, doesn't matter. It's this guy, and he's here. Go get him. Amazing. I thought that was so fun. They're like little investigations every single time. I loved it. In this one, they just show you the whole ring of people. There's no investigation. There's just It's not great. There's no suspense. There's no mystery. They all have like their masks on, and then you do reveal who they are, as if it matters.
Well,
like they all take their mask off, and I'm like, do I care who you are? I don't, because you're not relevant.
Sometimes it did matter, and I want to just combat this a little bit. I understand what you're saying. I totally agree that it could have been done better. I didn't mind having them all be shown because you still don't know who they are, and that did matter for a few missions. There was one where you had the two warring clans and that monk who was like in between it all.
Yes.
And so you have to guess like who's the guy who's the Shinbaku here? And it was a little predictable, I would say, but you're still, and this happens a few times. You're like, I actually have to discover like which one it is. Like who's the Shinbaku here? Like, which I thought it did work sometimes. Sometimes it would go the Valhalla route where it's like, this is your Templar guy, kill him. And it literally highlights them on a map. You know nothing about them, you kill them and you move on. And like that was half of them. Half of them I did enjoy, like the who's who part of it. And it was like half where you're like, oh, it's this guy I've talked to before as part of the Shinbaku. That's cool. But I agree with you. I think it could have been done in a more exciting way, in a way that was not so checklisty, where it's like, okay, I got this guy, I got this guy, I got this guy. And I think, again, part of the checklisty feeling was, again, because for me at least, it wasn't broken up by any real story. That's how I kept referencing it in my gameplay. I was like, whenever I would get to a Naue part, I was like, this is real story, because the Shinbaku felt so unimportant in the grand scheme of their characters, right? It was important to them being assassins, but it was not important to their character arcs, which was more important.
I feel like most of them too, because the grand scheme is, okay, we have to figure out who the next guy is, but then we're also trying to figure out where's the box and what is the box, what's in there. And I swear, more than half of them, the answer was, oh, I don't know, I was just doing this for political power or whatever. Like they all had their own agendas.
Yes, they did have their own. Half of them were like, I was forced to be there. Some of them were like,
yeah,
I owed him a debt. One of them was like, I didn't know where the hell I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd say it was more like 11 of them were like, what box? Yeah. What box is this? And that was after the 11th time and the 30th hour of like finally killing your like third to last Shinbaku, and they're like, what box? And I'm like, oh, like, come on.
Yeah.
Stupid.
They just don't know. They don't care. And yet they were all there that night to get it and all this stuff.
So true.
And so I hated that.
I did too.
But then also the reveal at the end, like you said, with the Shogun. I didn't see it coming, but I couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less.
Like at the end, I'm like, for me, the Mitsuhide line, like he was the bad guy.
Yes.
And I think that was a cool storyline. And I like that they kept it true to history, because Mitsuhide actually did betray Oda Nobunaga, and he did go and try to take over Japan, and then he hid in that exact castle.
Really?
And there was a siege and all of it.
Cool.
So cool. I didn't know any of that, and if it wasn't for all of the little history nuggets that they have in the game, which I love. I love that game mechanic.
Yeah.
So like this is all true to history down to the T. Like he was killed in that castle, in that fortress, all this stuff. It did actually spoil it for me, because it talks about the history of how Mitsuhide dies way before I knew that he was the bad guy, but I didn't know how we were going to kill him. So I knew his destiny, essentially. But yeah, so I do like that. I think that his ending was really cool, very fitting. It wasn't like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but I enjoyed that part.
Yep.
But then with the Shogun, I'm like, wait a minute. Is this the guy that mysteriously we met for about a minute and a half when we watched the sumo wrestling? I was too busy watching the sumo wrestling. I thought that was sick. And wait, why is this guy interrupting me? I don't care. Anyways, moving on. Wait, that's the leader? Like, he didn't even make an appearance. He didn't make a single additional appearance, at least
not one.
In Odyssey, where you've got what's-her-face. She's kind of throughout the game, and you think that she's an ally, and then she's not.
Yes.
At least you've got that. But in this, it's like, no, you met the guy once, like in hour 10 of the game.
Yep.
And then he's at the dead end. It's like, that is not a reveal. That's not a reveal.
It's
in my opinion,
cool.
It would have been way cooler if they had like, hey, yeah, your mother is alive, and she actually betrayed the assassins, and for whatever's in this box, and she's actually like the mysterious. That's a little bit more predictable, I guess, technically, but it's like that would be more meaningful, at least.
It's meaningful. Or what if they just made the top guy like a Templar, like straight up? That would have been even better. Like,
yeah.
But instead,
or if they made the top guy freaking the religious leader that's like Yasuke's friend,
right?
Who you think he's peaceful, he's this peaceful, priest, but he's actually the secret leader of the Shinbaku, and he's like in the background of everything.
Sick.
Like, they had so many other options. Bro.
It was meaningless. It was meaningless is the word until you get the little, that inkling, the 4 Templars of like, this is badass, and this is a reason why Yasuke is assassinating these people outside of just for the good of the community. Like, this is where, for me, every RPG falls flat, where that, except Origins, because they tie in, this is the big takeaway. In Origins, they tie in the assassinations with Bayek's story. That is not the same in Odyssey, in Valhalla, barely in Mirage, and not in Shadows. The big circle, triangle, square, whatever shape they're doing, the big group of people you have to assassinate has nothing to do with their story. And this is why the RPGs fall flat for everybody, story-wise. I swear to God, it's the reason. And if you go and you look at, people love Origins. People love the story. You love Origins because of that. Because you go and research this next guy you're going to kill, and you're like, he was there the day my son died. I'm going to kill him. Instead of, I'm going to do this to do it. I'm going to kill these people for the good of community, and we're going to work on my story in the side. That is the biggest problem with this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that was palpable, that lack of reason, when Yasuke joined Naoe. I love most everything about that scene. It's so badass. It's so sick how he saves her, all the stuff, and how he like was, right-hand man to Oda Nobunaga. So cool. That's such a cool reveal. But then in the end where he's like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and kill me if you want, but I'm like, I am loyal to you and your cause now. I'm at your mercy. And then they team up. I'm like, whoa. Where did this come from, bro? Like, why are you doing this? And the only hint that we had was that he noticed on the night where Oda Nobunaga dies, he noticed that she has a hidden blade. And for some reason, that was meaningful to him. And then you learn later on, by doing his story missions, that the person that he killed in her village,
Momochi Sendai,
was like the head of these assassins, right? Also had a hidden blade, and it was meaningful to him. We didn't know why it was meaningful to him until the dead end of the game, when you kill the final Templar, that there's a flashback scene where Yasuke's mother dies from that Templar guy, and he's about to die when this assassin leaps out and kills half of the people on the boat, and then dies himself, and then tells Yasuke to run and escape, and he does. And he saw that he had a hidden blade, and he knew nothing else. The hidden blade was significant to him because of that night. Why did they not show that development on hour 15?
Yes.
There was no need to have that saved until the end.
Absolutely.
No need.
This is what I mean. Now we can stop the Shinbaku side of things and go on to their character stories now, because I loved them. Each of their individual stories. I loved Yasuke's story about how he worked with what's-her-face, Lady Nene, at the castle, and he worked his way up into becoming like Oda Nobunaga's right-hand man, how he worked with his mentor who wasn't too well-received, and all this other stuff. I loved that story. And then he went out with them and all this other stuff. And then the Templar side of things is amazing. And then you go to Naoe's story, and you see how, her mom wasn't there and her dad was training her, and you keep going to these flashbacks and her aunt's around. She's helping people around Iga, and it's building up to this night that Oda and Yasuke attack, and it's like you can see it building up to it, and then introducing the coolest character in the game in Hanzo, who's like I don't know, romantically involved with her mom at one point or something like that, or loved her in one way or another, but couldn't be with her. So he went off to be some Ronin instead of being part of the Kakshipaiki, which is their little Iga clan of assassins. And so he knows all about them. He helps them. He saves. It is such a cool story. It's great, but it's like,
yes, it is very cool.
It's like 4 hours long. Like literally. I mean, I wonder the cutscenes times of Naoe's story is seriously, it's probably 4 to 5 hours.
Well, and you don't understand the depth, like with Hanzo, right?
Mm-hmm.
You meet him halfway through the game, and then you do not see him again until the dead end of the game on the final cutscenes right before the end credits. And you're like, why did they not have him appear more often? This would be much more meaningful.
This is where my playthrough was even worse than that, because I met Hanzo for the first time like 5 hours before the game ended. That's how bad my pacing was. That's how long it took me to get to the final mission of Naoe, where then you do all those little things and you find out about her mom in the tombs and all this, and I'm like,
yeah, they should have made it required. For me, it made a little bit more sense because he's like, this pathway that you're going down, do not do it. Stop investigating the boxes. Stop investigating the assassins. Stop.
Yeah, I was already done. I was already done.
And I only killed like 3 Shinbaku at that point. So I was like, oh, that's a good point. That's a good time to do that. I do this entire mission of killing the Shinbaku and then the Templars, and then the reveal this. So it was more meaningful for me, I guess, than it was for you. I mean, that's like, who's this guy?
That's how bad it was. Not even who's this guy. It was like, I kept saying in my playthrough, finally, we have some like reasoning why Naoe cares about all this. And then when you learn, you see her mom's robes, the white and the red is so cool. You see the 3 boxes in there. You learn about how her mom started in Spain. I think this was in Spain. She started the assassins, and then she was tasked with bringing it to Japan. Like, that's where I was like, thank you. Like, we got some actual assassin stuff. When I remember, because I shit you not, I'm 35 hours into the game, and I read that first scroll that was like, you should not kill the the innocent. I got chills. I was like, is this an Assassin's Creed game? Because up to that point, it hadn't used the word assassin until 35 hours in. This is what I mean when the pacing, at least how I encountered it, and I'm sure plenty of people encountered it how I did. If they made it required and they wrote a linear story intertwining their stories with the Shinbaku in the same way they did Bayek's, intertwining his character progression with the people he's assassinating, this would have been a 10 out of 10. It would have been great. But instead, it's segmented. It's completely poorly paced in so many ways. It drags in the middle. It picks up great in the end. It starts great in the beginning, and it's all out of whack. And that's why it fell flat for me. So, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, you mentioned a lot of good points, and I won't go too. I mean, Johnny went in great depth about the specific story beats with both of them. 100%. You don't feel purpose when you're going and making these assassinations. You don't understand why they're doing the things that they're doing, which if you don't understand that makes a bad movie, that makes a bad book, that makes a bad any form of media. And that's what happened here, is that it wasn't palpable. You weren't on the same page as the person you're playing as. And then in the end you're like, oh, that's why. Oh, okay. And really, it was missing a lot of core elements. It was missing the assassins. It was missing the Templars. I mean, man, they just sprinkle it like paprika at the end, where it's like they give you the bare minimum at the very dead end of, there's this group of Templars. And I actually did like the Templar missions. I think it wasn't a ton of them, but each of them were badass missions. I actually really liked the mission, the 4 assassinations. And the ending for Yasuke is so amazing. Like, I think it's so meaningful. He knows each Templar, like, almost personally. He's got a vendetta. It's palpable. You can feel it. The final fight scene with him throwing him out the window first and then coming down to finish him off. And, like, oh my gosh, it was perfect. And that's why people say Yasuke's mission was so much, just his story was so much better. Was because you could feel it at the end. It was at the end, but it was like, oh, there it is. There we go. But nowadays, it's like you're doing these silly little parkour missions to find these scrolls and like assassin logos on rocks that you're finding. Like, oh, there's an assassin's piece of armor, and then oh, there's a scroll that we find out what the mom was doing. And then it's not until they're not really missions. They're not missions. And then you have like the random boss fight at the end of the last one down in Key.
Oh, it's just so
which
hard.
I hated because he was way above level.
Way over level.
Oh my gosh.
I switched to Yasuke.
I don't know what the deal was.
I switched to Yasuke and
I had to cheese that guy.
I kicked him off the cliff. I said goodbye.
I couldn't.
Oh. It was,
dude. I had to do that fight scene a ton. And then the second to last Templar for Yasuke, so hard. That was so hard. But anyways. Her missions were meaningless. They seemed like super side quests where it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of learning about the assassins by like doing these parkour sequences, which are not very cool. They're not even timed or anything like that. Like there's no reason to be doing them. And then you realize, oh wait, shoot, that's like her mission. And then Hanzo, it was missing the assassins, it was missing the Templars, it was missing the Isu, and then it was missing the modern day.
That's crazy. That's not even Assassin's Creed. That's not even Assassin's Creed. I mean, you just said the words assassin.
In my opinion, it's almost less of it
is less of Assassin's Creed.
I go back
than
and
Valhalla.
forth here, but I feel like it's less of an Assassin's Creed game than Valhalla.
It is. It is
Valhalla
100%.
was so much an Assassin's Creed game. You were not an assassin, but you were killing Templars, and they were Templars.
Yeah,
they were Templars. And the Isu story of that is there.
The best.
Right? The lure of the Isu and all that. It's just, and there are assassins, but you're not one. And, that's what kind of fell for me. But for this one, it's like, okay, you're a great value brand version of the Assassins Brotherhood. Like, you kind of just made this group because you just, your mom kind of was part of this group that was similar, but the tenets don't really mean anything to you.
Nope.
You don't know that there's a bigger reason, there's a bigger world out there of fighting against control and order and the Templars and giving people free choice. Like there's none of that.
None of it.
This is just their own vendetta, and they make this little cult. What do they call them? The Iki?
The Kakushiba Iki. What they're called.
Kashipa Iki. I don't even know how. I didn't know how to say it, so it's just hard. They never call themselves assassins, and they never commit to it. There's like that scene by the river where they kind of all drink from like a cup with charcoal in it, but there's no like ceremony of like in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood where he's initiating his sister in as like one of the Brotherhood. I'm like, yo, like so cool. You feel that. And even in Assassin's Creed Origins, there's no Assassin's Brotherhood up to that point. But then there's a point where they're so angry because all their allies that they thought they had became enemies and that they were pawns in some greater scheme. And they were like, and Bayek and Aya and their allies were like, we have to be bigger than this. We have to create this order to fight against this. It's like, there we go. Yes, like you could have had something like that and you didn't. So we were missing the assassins. They were off-brand assassins the whole time. I was hoping for some kind of like ignition of like, whoa, there's this bigger thing called assassins. Like, well, let's integrate with that. And look, I found these old scrolls of these tenets and these rules and these beliefs. Like, let's use this as like our scripture. None of that.
I mean, I think.
And go ahead.
They kind of did. They kind of did. That was the cool moment for me. You have to understand, 30 hours in, I get this stuff about assassins, and I was like, oh my God, it's an Assassin's Creed game I'm playing. And Junjiro even makes the little symbol, and he's like, we are this group of people who's going to live by these rules, and we're going to help each other. And I like that to a degree, but you're totally right. There's no philosophy behind it. There's no order versus freedom versus... You said the words, there was no assassins, Templars, Isu, or modern day. If that's not evidence enough that this is the least Assassin's Creed, I don't know what is. Now, I'll let you finish your thought, but I want to talk about Naoe's ending in a sec. But
yes, yeah. So I'll transition into that. But yeah, Templars, they existed. It was enough. It was enough for me. like that they were actual Templars.
Barely.
They got one of the final bosses, and you get his armor with like the giant cross on his chest. Like, yeah, these Portuguese are so Templar. I love it. This is it. And they're just rotten to their core. Like they believe it down to their core, and they're like, they have a vision, and that's something that Templars have that the Shinbaku did not have. They have this vision of, we are coming to Japan for this reason. We're going to take over Japan so then we can use their resources to fuel our monster machine of an economy and power and control in Europe and all this stuff. They have this grand vision of order and control and peace through order. And it's like to their core, they believe that. And the Shinbaku, half of them were like, I'm just here because it's part of the club. Like, it's really, they're not. They kind of just signed up and they didn't know what they were signing up for half the time. Some of them were innocent and no one knew what was in the box. And I'm kind of going back to the Shinbaku, but anyways.
It's annoying.
And then at the end, I'm thinking that there's something Isu, right? What's in that dang box? What is in that box? It's gotta, if it's not an apple of Eden, it's some kind of piece of Eden. That,
of course,
I mean,
it's Isu.
That's kind of that's how Assassin's Creed works. There's some kind of thing that's going to give them wisdom or power.
Yes.
Of some artifact.
Of course.
And they've got these boxes. That's why they wanted it. That makes so much sense. That's how, whether that's predictable or not, whatever, that's how it works. So at the end, let's get into Naoi's ending, and then we'll save Modern Day for dead last.
Yes.
At the end, Naoi, I was so freaking mad at this part. She's trying to figure out how to get into this vault. There's this giant rock that's covering this vault, and she knows that she has to move this rock. She knows. And that it's like a secret door. She can't figure out how to do it. She can't move it. She tries pushing it as if it was a huge rock. And she remembers that her dad would play that song every single night on the little flute, and which then got shattered, that then Junjiro repaired. And she's like, I know how to unlock the door. And she plays that same song on the flute, and it effing opens.
Yeah.
Mind you,
let's go.
That was not an Isu or nothing. This is not Isu.
Yes.
There was no technology. There was no electricity. It was a magical mother effing rock.
You shut up.
That moved with no mechanics, no gears, no nothing.
It was Isu.
It just moved out of the way because she played this stupid song on her whistle that her dad used to play. And that was the secret. I mean, I feel like that's even weaker than the plot of the Nicolas Cage movie with the American artifacts. National Treasure.
You shut up about National Treasure. You shut.
I love National Treasure. I'm not trying to hate on National Treasure, but it was
Treasure.
Out of the this is not at all. It just magically opened up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was Isu, and it's not. But Johnny, what did you think of that? And then go into what's in the box.
Well. It's so funny you brought that up because it didn't even click in my head because like you, I was like, it's Isu, it's magic. And then my mind never revisited the fact that it just opened.
It wasn't.
Well,
I was on stream. I'll have to post this on TikTok or something. I'm like, I swear if she opens this rock with the song, I'm going to be pissed. And then she does that. And I just looked at the camera for 5 minutes. I was like, "You're effing kidding!"
I loved it. Okay. What I will say is really, really cool. I mean, for me, you have to understand. It's been 2 months since I finished this game, right? So you remind me because in some of the missions, she's like, "My dad heard the song playing back to him once." That's why her dad would play the song out into the open, into the forest. And in hopes of signaling to her mom if she's still out there. And he said a few times he heard her response of the song, so he knows she's still alive. And you learn at this point that it was really Hanzo who was playing. Yeah. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's what I mean. Their characters, Hanzo's character, the mom, the dad, Naoi, really cool dynamic. And the fact that Hanzo was in love with her mom, and that's why he left, and he's been waiting for her too, and he's the one who's been playing back the song. That's cool. That was well done. That was well written. This is where my disappointment hits a peak, is because in this game you have 20 tombs, 20 underground, really complex, deep, and the amount of times I was waiting to see like the Isu glowing rocks in the background and all this, like I was like, of course, because the assassins got to Japan from Naoi's mom. The Templars came through the Portuguese. That's all well and good, right? The Japanese themselves didn't have, like, it wasn't part of their culture to begin with. But that doesn't mean the Isu weren't there. The Isu should have been there, at least in some form.
Everywhere.
Right. There's no, that's separate from how the Assassins or Templars, and that's not why they're there or anything, but the Isu still could have been there. So, when we'll get into modern day in a second, because that's where I absolutely am going to, like, lose my mind, like yeah. Furiously. But, you know the saddest part of the whole thing? I don't remember what was in the box.
Yeah, you want to know why, Johnny? You want to know why you don't remember what's in the effing box at the end that they were leading up the entire story to? What's in the box? I don't know. What's in the box? I don't know. Well, they probably did know at one point, but then they forgot because it was the least memorable thing in the frickin' world. It was nothing to do with the Isu. It was nothing to do with Templars or Assassins or anything. To my understanding, and I still don't really understand what it was, they are like these artifacts, these Japanese artifacts, not Isu. Japanese, like, one of them is like a giant jewel, I guess. One of them is a mirror, which they reference. They need to, like, find the mirror. I think it's the last box. And I don't even know what was in Hanzo's box, but they're like these 3 artifacts that I guess have some kind of historical relevance to Japan. And it's one of those, like, if you have these artifacts, then you gain political power over Japan, pretty much. Like, this is like the crown jewel. This is what's going to give it to you. As if you need that. As if Oda Nobunaga needed that. As if the Shinbaku needed that. The fact that they thought, oh, we need these artifacts to then gain political power, it's like, bro, you were taking it over without it. So that's what was in the box. It was these Japanese artifacts that have historical relevance to gain political power within Japan. 0 Isu artifacts, 0 Assassins, Templars. They weren't weapons. It wasn't knowledge. Nothing of actual significance.
From when I played the opening story mission in January to the very end of the game, I would have put on my sweet mother's life that there was an Isu artifact in that box. I don't know if they did.
There should have been.
Why did they do it on purpose? Where they knew, like, you were supposed to believe that there was? Because,
well, and here's the thing. All of this, and this is a big problem that I have, was leading to a DLC.
Yep.
Do I think that this is an incomplete game? No. I do think that this is a complete game. Is it an incomplete story?
Yeah.
Yes, but Valhalla had the same issue, and so did Odyssey. Origins, their DLCs and all games prior, just added to the story. You didn't, like, it book ended, and then this is a, you know, what do they call the books, like, novella? This is a novella.
Nice.
Like, this is just a nice little story about Bayek and the Assassins 2 years later, or whatever, right? In Odyssey, if you truly want to understand the entire story, you have to play the Fate of Atlantis DLC. You have to. In Valhalla, if you want to know the reveal at the end, where Alfred is the leader of the Templars, you have to play the DLC.
That's a DLC?
Or was that a DLC, or was that an update 2 years later?
Neither.
I think it was an update. It was not in the base game.
You sure?
That was not in the base game. Yeah. 2 years after Valhalla came out, they had an update called, like, the final update.
No, that wasn't Alfred. Was it?
Was he not a part of that? It was some kind of additional to grasp the whole story. I think the final update I'm thinking of, that's the reveal where he finally goes to America.
Yes.
And, you know, that's where you find his body.
Correct.
Eivör's bones.
Yes.
And Odin, he's speaking with Odin, and he turns down being an assassin. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to be an assassin.
Yes.
And, like, and so there's a lot of story beats that you find in the end. But anyways, in this game, you can tell that there is Hanzo and Naoe are now on, like, a joint quest as kind of enemies to find her mom. They are unsure if she is alive, and that's the only thing they have to go off of. So off of this, which if this was real life, there's no effing way, right, that she's alive. But they're going to go find her as if she didn't find them. Like it, and, you know, maybe she has a reason for not finding them. And hopefully it's really good.
Hopefully.
That's why I wanted some kind of like, oh, yeah, she betrayed them. And the mom's a freaking bad guy, and then you got to deal with that. But they have 3 boxes. That box that you're trying to find the whole time, there's 3 of them. Hanzo found one. You have the other from the Shinbaku, and the other one, who knows? I don't know. I think maybe the mom still had it. And so I think that's the final reveal. And who knows? Maybe the 3 together, Triforce freaking, I don't know. Maybe it is some kind of Isu artifact. They actually don't show it. They don't show physically what is in the box.
Oh, that's why
they don't actually show it. They reference it verbally.
Well, okay. I think it's funny that you said it like that. That like it is. You do believe it's a complete game because that is further evidence that Ubisoft wrote a game about the Shinbaku, right? It's a complete Shinbaku game, absolutely. It is not, and to a degree, it's a complete Yasuke game as well. Now is hardcore not done, which is fine.
Lead you to a DLC.
Which is fine. It just is absolutely more proof that like the main game is the Shinbaku, and I think that's a crime. But this is where we will segue into the absolutely biggest problem with Assassin's Creed Shadows being the complete 100% lack of modern day. And let me zoom back, Bubba, to 2.5 months ago. We recorded a podcast saying what we wanted in this game. We talked about all the scenarios they could go. And I remember at one point, I popped my head up and I said, there is one route here that we haven't considered yet in that they don't touch Baz. Remember I said this? I said they don't touch Basim's story at all.
100%.
And we were like, no, there's no way they'd do that. We talked about like 3 different scenarios and how they're going to go about it. And I remember I popped my head up and I was like, what if they don't talk about it at all? And we were both like, nah, of course they do not mention the name Basim. There is never a time where you are out of the Animus. The Animus, oh my God, this is where I'm going to blow my top. I'm gonna lose it. In January, Bubba and I got a sneak preview into where we see this cool Animus opening. This beautiful Abstergo logo, these people diving into the water and they're evolving, and it's very Assassin's Creed. And then you see the square talking to you, and it looks like it did in Revelations, where it's like, is this the Animus? Like this weird rectangle talking to you? And it glitches for a second, and it says she's lying to you. And so in January, from January until the beginning of April, I was like, we're getting some really cool shit, right? We're having somebody's betraying somebody. The Animus is evil. They're talking to a modern day protagonist. That's all a layup. That is all more or less confirmed by the opening. And it feels like they halfway through the game cut it out, right? It almost feels like what were they talking about? Where the Animus is like, it's lying to you. It's evil. It's glitching. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be great. Nope. There is no modern day protagonist. You are walking around in the Animus. And I appreciated that. When you zoom out for a bit and you're walking out as like Mr. Silhouette and you explain what's happening with Templars, I was like, that's cool. That was a cool little sequence. And then that's it. There is like 20 minutes of Animus anything, 0 minutes of modern day, 0 minutes of mentioning any characters we know, 0 minutes outside of the Animus, and it is the biggest mistake they've made. And even if it comes into DLC, even if there's some big modern day DLC, it doesn't matter. It's over. The main game they dropped doesn't have modern day, and that sucks. So
yeah. So literally there is no modern day in this game. And whatever you think of the modern day in the prior games, you have to agree that there has to be Isu and there has to be modern day to some extent. To some extent. It's like making a freaking movie about Sith and Jedi without the Force. It's like the Force is what connects all of this together. And in Assassin's Creed, if you do not have the Isu and the modern day, the Animus, what are we doing? The only time that they got a pass for this, for me, was in the last game, Assassin's Creed Mirage, because they came out and said, guys, we don't have any modern day for this. This was going to be a DLC for Valhalla. We decided to make it a full-fledged video game. And in my head canon, and I think this is, in my opinion, this is what they led up to at the end of Valhalla, William Miles, Desmond Miles' father, was not, he's the leader of the assassins. He was not convinced that Basim was truly on their side. He was their only witness to know what happened to Layla, because Layla went to the World Tree and never came back. She's effing dead. And they only have Loki or Basim's word for it. And he's like, yeah, you know me. Layla's been in the Animus this whole time learning about me, and he was the bad guy in the end. And he's like, no, I'm an assassin just like you, and you assassins are just a breath of what we used to be. Like, I'm going to help you guys get to, because you guys are so weak now, I'm going to help you get on your feet, and we're going to start fresh. This is so great, all this stuff. And William Miles, being very intelligent, was like, I don't trust you. And Basim says, hey, I don't blame you. Take a vial of my blood, and then you can go into the Animus and look at my life, and you can judge me for yourself. And so in my headcanon, when you are playing as Basim in Assassin's Creed Mirage, you are William Miles, or someone that William is teamed up with, who knows. You are William Miles in the Animus looking at the life of Basim to verify if he's a good guy or bad guy. So, now we're in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Layla's dead, the main modern-day protagonist, and just like in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but worse, we've got nothing. We've got absolutely nothing. No first person.
So much worse.
No Abstergo, no Animus. We had this hell of a teaser of the Dark Animus, and somebody's hacked it or something, and like Johnny said, they're lying to you. This is not truth. They've changed. They're trying to use you, all this stuff, and Abstergo, when they're talking to you, that's very apparent. They say, some memories are complete, but some of them are corrupted, so you can't skip through time and look at all the memories. You have to play it out. And so that's why, like, you kind of do the prologue of the game, and then you have to play it out, because they can't skip through time. They said, like, the memories have either been corrupted over time, or they've been tampered with. And so they kind of hint to the fact of, like, the Animus has been tampered with, and these memories are we're unsure about this, which is why, by the way, that there's a canon mode. I guess just with the story of this. And so I'm waiting to meet a new protagonist. Hey, maybe we came up with some pretty good ideas, I think.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they're twins. Maybe they got these twin, people, or maybe one of them is a descendant of Yasuke, one's a descendant of Naue. And, you've got dual modern-day protagonists, just like you've got dual, past protagonists. And, they get recruited, or maybe we've skipped time a little bit, so they're catching us up on the fact that they've recruited these guys on the Assassins. And the Assassins are making their way back up to the top, because they've been on the bottom of the barrel, weak sauce for so long. And Abstergo's taken over the world, and they're trying to grow their ranks. There's so many things that they could have done. And there was nothing. And like Johnny said, they're probably saving that for DLC content. But why? They have no good reason, in my opinion, to not even put in a hint of, like, maybe in one of the loading screens after, like, significant story events, like after the death of Oda Nobunaga. Pause. Let's just do 5 minutes of, it can be just an effing cutscene. I don't care. It can be a cutscene even of just modern day, nothing playable, and it's just showing you.
I know.
Am I going off too much? Do I need to pass the baton?
No, I know why. You asked why. I know why. And the answer to your why, because when you said why, I went, there's a very sad reason why. So I want to be clear to everybody listening. This was a completely overthought decision. Like, there were meetings about this decision for years at Ubisoft, I'd bet, of whether or not to have modern day. And the reason I would bet so much money on why they did it is accessibility. This is a dying company who's surviving off of a 20-year franchise, who for a long time in order to fully appreciate the game, you needed to play everyone that came before it. And that is what made this game series so special, is the continuous storyline going through all 15 of these games, keeping them together and giving them meaning and making it really cool. But 5 years have gone by since the last main title entry, and you have to understand that they played it safe. They said this game, it was the sad part of this, Bubba, is what I'm getting at, is they more or less forgot about us and ignored us. The true fans, the old fans. This is not a game for us. It's the first time in the whole series, outside of Mirage, like you said, that they didn't. There's the littlest mentions of Ezio. That was all we got. That was all that was made for you and me. That was it. And that was when I got all excited and I was like, this is cool. And I get trying to separate yourself and I get trying to like start new and start fresh. But it's such a key part of what makes Assassin's Creed so good and so cool, is the fact that you have this connecting line through it all, which I loved. And it actually, the more I talk about it, the more I think it's not going to be DLC for the same reason. They don't want you to, they're not requiring you to play the last 15 games. This is the most standalone Assassin's Creed game of all time. You need no prior knowledge to fully appreciate this game, and that is 100% on purpose, sadly.
Well, how much do you think of it's on purpose for the point of selling the DLC? Because Odyssey had this same problem where it's like, you know, if you are not an Assassin's Creed fan, you do not know the history, you do not know all of the lore, you are going to play the base game and nothing else. You are not going to buy the DLCs. And if you do, it's just because you love the game, and that's it. But, like, the people who buy the DLCs of Assassin's Creed are the ones that know and love the lore. They want to know what happens in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Hold on, you just said that she's like the heir of Atlantis and now she's the bearer of the staff of Hermes. And then you didn't go into that further for the rest of the game. You just finished the Demos story. What the hell happens there? Oh, well, the Fane of Atlantis DLC goes into all that. Oh, okay, well, I really want to know what happens, so yeah, let's play that. Same thing here. They're probably going to tease it, and man, they better. They have
They're
to.
not gonna.
But again, we said this last time. Modern day, well, hold on. The boxes. They didn't show what's in the boxes, and the boxes are also incomplete. I got to know what that's about. And then with the modern day, they didn't go into the modern day at all. We got to know what's going on there, and they're, you know, but to not even have a teaser at the end where they show the credits, like it was so lackluster at the end of the game where I'm assuming that you had the credits roll at the same part. I don't know if you can technically finish the Yasuke mission after the Naue mission.
You can.
Okay, so how did your credits roll with Yasuke?
I did Yasuke first, and then I finished with Naue, which I thought was good because I saw Naue and Hanzo walking into the woods. It pans up and the credits roll, and I was like, great end, because now it leads right into the DLC.
No! I was like, that was the stupidest lighthearted ending I've ever had. That was like, I was not expecting that at all. If it was at the end of Yasuke's, it's like, okay, he just declared war on the effing Templars and killed that last guy. Like, he's on this vendetta, and credits roll. Okay. I see what you're cooking here. Very cool. But with Naue, like, her making up with freaking Hanzo and going to find their mom, and then, like, zero music, and credits roll. And I'm like, wait, what? That's how you're ending the game? It would be so cool if they, like, credits roll and then it starts to glitch out and they give you, like, a cutscene teaser of what the hell's going on in the animus. Like, what are these guys doing? What are they doing? But I think you're right. That they had to make this the most standalone game possible. And I'm surprised that they even had that much in the beginning with the animus.
This is where I'll bet you they made that years ago. And then they finishing this game with all these delays. They're cramming, delay. And they abandon it. I bet it's a clearly like a conscious decision not to have modern day. And it's for that reason. And it's almost so short-sighted because one of our scenarios was they just completely reboot it with a new modern day protagonist, which would have been fine. I would have liked to see what happens with Basim's story, but it's far better than no modern day at all. So why this is probably a huge mistake for them, not only because it hurts fans like you and me, like real fans of the series, but because it's going to hurt people down the line. If you build up, you don't have to build up a DLC of Naue. Instead, you can build up the next game. You can now start a new arc of some new really cool, charismatic modern-day protagonist. Another plain bagel between Desmond and Layla, the worst, whatever. You could give this really interesting end where you're not building to a DLC for Shadows. You're building for a new Assassin's Creed, and it's such a representation of where Ubisoft is at. It's right now, they have to focus on saving their company. They have to focus on at least selling their company well for a lot of money with a successful game of Assassin's Creed, and that means everything is focused on Shadows. That's why we haven't heard anything about Hex or Jade or any of that. We haven't heard anything. They made this a fully contained thing to the only thing they're building toward is DLC. They want Shadows to rule. And like I said, even if they make a modern day DLC, which at this point I really don't think they're going to, it doesn't matter because the whole game goes without it. So how much would it do? You think they're going to introduce some modern day guy in a DLC? That's such an afterthought.
Well, I mean, so again, let's look at Odyssey. In Odyssey, they pull you out of the Animus once, maybe twice, and then you can actually hop right back in. You do not have to do anything once you exit the Animus, which I appreciated. Yeah. And there's really not a lot of story going on. Like you're just in this weird like warehouse or some room, in some weird storage facility, and you just hop right back in the Animus, and that there's not really a ton of Layla story in Odyssey, but then the Fate of Atlantis DLC was not just about the staff of Hermes and Cassandra or Alexios. It was about Layla and her relationship now as the bearer of the staff of Hermes, and so it was as much modern day story progression as it was Cassandra or Alexios progression. So they could very well get away with something like that, but having zero protagonists, I don't know. They could do something similar to like Assassin's Creed Unity, where you've got you're in the Animus, you're not like a person, you know, they don't give you a name, but you're someone in the Animus, and like in Unity, you've got Bishop, who is talking to you through the Animus, right? And they'll probably do something like that. I hated that. I hated Unity. That's one of the reasons why, no modern day, you just have Bishop talk to you every now and then with the riffs and stuff.
But we had cutscenes. There's the scene, and in Syndicate, the same thing. There's literal CG cutscenes of Rebecca and Sean, and that would have done so much for Shadows.
At least cutscenes.
I don't want Rebecca and Sean. I'm good if it's a completely new cast. If they abandon the Basim storyline, whatever, I don't care. You need to have a reason to be in the Animus. Otherwise, you're not in the Animus. They could do just about anything, and Assassin's Creed fans would be like, okay, fine, good,
whatever.
because of some of the shit they've pulled over the years. We'll take anything in the modern day at this point. I don't even care. Yeah. But to not have
they could have like you said, a whole new cast and just say, oh yeah, Sean and Rebecca, they're in Europe doing the thing. This is it's been a few years since that happened with Loki and William, and we've actually the Brotherhood has grown quite a bit, and we are a branch in Asia. Right, and we found out that there's this relevance with, these two people back in Japan who are Yasuke and Naue. And, they're so interesting. They took down this organization called the Shinbaku, but then after that, they started to come across pieces of Eden, and they formed the actual Brotherhood. They evolved the Kashibiki, Iki, whatever, into the actual assassins, and that's what we come from. And you could pull anything out of a hat at this rate, and we'd be like, sick.
We'd be like, thank you,
cool,
fine, anything. Because
Yeah.
This is more than any other game in the series. It's just a Japan simulator. Okay, I do want to back up here because the last literal hour and a half has been rather negative, and I want to go back to the fact that this is both probably in our top 5 Assassin's Creeds. Like, this is a very good video game. I don't want to be so negative, but for me, the lack of...
It was just the ending of the story that really threw me through.
The ending of the story, even I didn't mind so much. It is the missing of the modern day was a slap in the face to older fans, I guess, but that just shows they're not marketing for us. They're not making these games for you and me anymore. They're making it for little Georgie, who's a 12-year-old, on should have been Christmas, but it was instead whatever, Easter, and he's getting his copy of Assassin's Creed, and that's who they're making for. Because I would bet, I don't know if this is true, but I'd bet 80 to 85% of people who played this game don't really care about it, don't really understand any modern day storyline, have played probably one or two of them before it, maybe have never played any of it, maybe this is their first Assassin's Creed, and they didn't finish the game. I bet that is a majority, a strong majority of the people who bought and played Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that's how they're going to make their money, and that's who they're marketing for. It's very common in all video games for the company to not market or focus on their, whether it's competitive or just hardcore fans, and they don't usually focus on that because it's not where the money is. So I get it all. It's just very disappointing, and it's very it hurts a little, man. It hurts a little.
Well, and it just takes so much out. Like, if you take the modern day and the Isu out of Assassin's Creed, in my opinion, they're just mediocre RPG games.
Totally agree.
Like, not this one. This one, the gameplay, like we've said, is so freaking there. It's so fun. But, I mean, it's also, at the same time, it's not necessarily... They did, there's new things with, like, the stealth mechanics and the light and stuff. Other games have done that before. But it is so fun, so well-rounded and polished, all that. The story is not really there. Like, it was there, and then they really just kind of let it frazzle out in the end. And so, like, if you take out the Isu and the modern day, it takes out a lot of the mysticism and the magic out of it. Yeah. And it's like, what are you left with? If you take that out of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I really don't like that game. If you take that out of Odyssey, okay. Origins is one of the only ones that I think stands on its own 2 feet without, a lot of Isu stuff and without modern day, right? It's just a good effing story and a great performance by the guy who plays Bayek, and it's just a beautiful story. That is not common for Assassin's Creed. It really isn't. It is more common than it is not that they have a disjointed, really strange pacing video game that either is super quick or takes way too long. Like, think of Mirage. Part of the reason why I love Mirage so much is it gave you something to chew on. It was almost like the show Lost. I don't know if you've seen Lost. Or maybe a more modern version was like in the MCU, the Vision and Scarlet Witch.
Yep.
What's like WandaVision?
Yep.
Every episode, you're like, woo, I have theories about what's going on. What does this mean? What does that mean? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? And then, like, in Mirage, the big twist at the end with what's her name? Starts with an N.
Oh, my God.
The friend that's a girl.
Oh, my God.
We're forgetting her name. But that she's not real. And that she's like Loki.
The Jinn.
She's Loki in his mind. And she's a Jinn, or, she's really just like, it's Loki, and this is how he's manipulating Basim. So cool! And, like, I got to the end of the game, I'm like, what does that mean? Right. Wow, there's so much to chew on here. I'm going to, like, YouTube search, like, videos of explaining the ending of this game, because I don't even know what the hell just happened. Like, that's cool. Like, I want to feel like it was a mystery the whole time, and yeah, there were the assassins, and yeah, there was a story with Basim, but, like, that was almost half of it, was, like, what's going on with Basim and this Jinn that he's seeing in these nightmares and all this stuff. So cool. And if you take that out of it, it's half of a game.
Well,
for story.
For the
story elements.
And I want to do a little thought experiment with myself here. So I was thinking about this while you're talking. What are my favorite moments in Assassin's Creed story? 2 come to mind that, like, gave me chills, and it's where the super complex story of modern day and this history and these hundreds of hours of gameplay and finding all this stuff, where it all comes together. I think of 2 spots. I think of the scene in, I think it's Brotherhood, where they're in the vault and Ezio looks over his shoulder and he's looking at you and he's looking at Desmond, and Minerva talks to Desmond through Ezio.
Yeah, at the dead end of AC2 is where
AC2,
that is.
yes. And
And leads right into
and
Brotherhood.
it's why he's the prophet. And Ezio's looking back and he's like, who's Desmond? And that's where it's like, that's the first moment where it's like, holy shit, that is the point of modern day. That's the point of this whole super complex story, is that big payoff where it's so freaking cool and so well written and so exciting and interesting.
And you realize that everything was intentional up to
Everything's
this point.
intentional, so well thought out, so cool, so unique to this franchise. Is this crazy?
Yes, it is unique.
Crazy timeline, crazy history, time travel, weird, amazing. The second, for me personally, especially, I'm sure you can guess it, is when at the end of Valhalla, and there's so many people who still don't know this because they never bothered to finish the game. It's about the payoff. People, it's after 80 hours, you go in and Layla's in the tree, and there is Desmond, who you haven't seen since AC3 for like 6-7 games, and it's like, oh my God. That's that line that ties together. You're now tying all the games with Layla to all the games with Desmond. They are all now connected. Yep. It's a payoff. It's why we do it. It's why I love this game. It's so unique. It's so cool. You have Desmond is there in his reader form or whatever, and you know what he's been doing all these years when he died, and it's so freaking good, and it's so exclusive to this series that you can have moments like that, because like I said, it's so unique to this series, and without it, it's so much emptier, and it takes that like super exciting stuff out of the game for me. So I get why they did it. I hope it paid off, but it hurts a little, man, because now I don't have that to look forward to. There is no big payoff. There's no who cares what's happening in Hex? Who cares who the modern day protagonist is? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't connect with Shadows. Doesn't connect with Mirage. Who cares?
Well, and if you're going to make a game like Assassin's Creed, like you said, that is what makes it unique. It's this funky time-traveling, visiting history in the forms of your ancestors, but it's like a fantasy version a little bit because of this Isu and all the stuff. That is what makes it unique. Games like that are just based off of history and there's not any kind of mysticism to it, like Ghost of Tsushima, like Red Dead Redemption, those are kick-ass games because they have an incredible story that is unforgettable, and it doesn't miss a beat, and it is so intentional, and even every side quest, everything was sought out, and it was thought out beforehand. It's an incredible story. It's like you're watching a freaking movie or reading a book, you know, like that's what makes those games good. Like, yeah, the gameplay's fun and stuff, but okay, with Shadows, it did not hit, though, even near the storytelling abilities of those two games I just referenced.
Absolutely not.
And so what's special about it? And in my opinion, it is an amazing game. It is so fun, but just the base game, there is nothing special about it that sets it apart in the gaming industry from any other RPG.
I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. And because to me, it
doesn't make it bad.
It's not.
It just makes it not
and
special.
Shadows is already one of my favorite games. Do not get me wrong. I literally smile every time I play it. And I think the one thought I have about this game more than anything else is I'm so glad it exists because it had to jump through so many hoops, and we heard about it for years. And I'm so happy that on my PC I can fire up this game and play it. And yeah, I love this game so much. But this is what I was saying at the very beginning of the pod, where I was like, if it delivered on these, if we had a story that was set up like Origins, where their assassinations contribute to their character arcs, where we have modern day, this would, without question, probably be my favorite Assassin's Creed game, one of my favorite games. If they delivered on that stuff, and it's just a testament to how genuinely good it is as a video game, leveling, combat. And I think the one thing that sticks out and that is better than any game I've ever played right now is visuals and map design and world design and buildings and architecture is stunning, stunning, stunning. However, that stuff ages. In 10 years, that's not going to hold up. You know what's going to hold up in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? Arthur freaking Morgan. right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Ezio. Like the Ezio games are so bad.
It doesn't matter how good a game looks. It doesn't matter how fun it is to play because other games will catch up eventually. So, yeah, I think that's where I'm at with it right now. I love this game so much. It is exactly what it needed to be for the sake of the company and hopefully the franchise and stuff like that. But I just hope in the future they throw me and you a bone because it's a slap in the face to us. It's a slap in the face to people who loved this series for those things that we talked about with this modern day stuff and the uniqueness. So
yeah, it's kind of just lost its soul a little bit, trying to emulate what others have done and just make a game that people will buy.
And
they did.
Maybe that'll change, right? We know Hex is not a big RPG. We know that. So maybe and not maybe. Almost for sure it will have a more focused narrative with a thought-out story because they chose German witch trials. That's not something they were like, this is Vikings, this is samurai, this is Egypt.
Yeah,
that's something they're like,
no-brainer.
What if we had this cool story to tell with this cool character? So, you know, I hope that it's headed in the right direction and Shadows gives them the kickboard that they need. And they're doing like a Dead by Daylight collab. Whatever, fine, that's cool. Like, I hope this game gets support. I hope we get really cool DLCs, full DLCs. I would murder somebody for a modern day DLC or just an Isu focused DLC. Like, I need something as an old fan, not even that old of a fan, as like a what am I, a 7-8 year vet at this point of this. I'm not even you.
Yeah.
I'm not even a true old head fan of this series. So like. And even I would kill for something like that. So I hope that's the direction they're going in. I hope Hex has a story that they want to tell. I hope it's the story first. And I'm okay that it wasn't in Shadows. After all this negativity and stuff, I am okay that it is because it's a super fun game to play. I loved playing every second of it. I'm 60 hours in. I'm still playing it. I have like basically no more side quests to do, and I'm still playing it. So that's a testament to how much I do love this game. But man,
They need to tie it in with the rest of the series,
tie it in.
Because if they don't include Isu or Modern Day at all, it does not tie in.
It doesn't tie in.
And you know they've tied in every game to some extent. Even like like Johnny said with pulling in the reader, that just made all of Layla's quest relevant. Like it's just like. The end of Valhalla really wraps it up very nicely, and every game, it ties together somehow. It all led to something, to some extent. But if they really don't have a modern day, and they don't have William and Basim and these others, or something, it's just truly a standalone game, and it's not really an Assassin's Creed game.
True.
Even less than Valhalla, which I never in a million years thought I'd say.
True.
I don't like Valhalla for a lot of reasons, but yeah, this is really missing a lot. So I do think that is 100% possible with DLC content. They've done it before. They can do it again. They likely will do it again. So let's hope that, like Johnny said, they throw us a bone for us AC fans out there. But anyways, let us know, you guys, in the comments. We probably said some things wrong. Maybe we're forgetting some things. We've only played this game once. Took Johnny, only 30 hours? Took me 55 to beat the main story because I'm so effing slow. But, let us know. What do you guys think? How did you react to the ending with the Shinbaku or with the Templars or with their individual stories? Where do you think it's going from here? Are you excited for DLC stuff or for the next game? There's so much in the air that y'all can talk about. And then that's one of our favorite parts, is seeing the comments and talking with you guys about this. That's why we have these communities that we do, is we just love to chat with you nerds about it. So we have each other, but we need you guys
more
to be
nerds.
part of it.
So just to bookend the whole episode here, Bubba, give me an overall 1 out of 10 rating for the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows as a whole, altogether.
The story of Assassin's Creed Shadows is a 7.
Wow. That's so much higher than I thought you were going to say.
Just because of the beginning. Like, I'm not going to hate on it. It really, the whole time, all 53 hours, I was like, it was, the last 15 to 20 hours, I was like, just kind of confused, but I thought, oh, well, I'm probably the problem here. They do have a cool story, but I'm having a hard time keeping track of characters and some plots.
I'm the problem, yeah.
And so, like, I'm probably the problem with a lot of this, but there's an overarching story here that I can at least follow. And then so it was just the tail end where I was like, wait, what? It was all for that? Like, there was just no payoff. So, no, it was the first half of the game is fire.
Yes.
Like I think Odu Nobunaga is one of the best characters in this game. Like, so intriguing. The flashback sequences are so cool. I think that's a good way to learn about their characters without having to go back and like learn about them first. Like you did Ezio, right? Ezio, you played as him as a youth for a lot of hours, and then AC3. So they've kind of learned from those mistakes of, okay, let's have you play as him as a 5-year-old. No, let's just have flashbacks. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it the whole time, and I just enjoyed it a little less and less as I went on, but I thought I was a problem. It was just a tail end. So the story, there was just no payoff. There was no assassins, no modern day. But I did enjoy a lot of it. And there was nothing I was actively disliking until the end. So yeah, 7 out of 10.
Well,
as far
there
as
you
the
go.
Whole,
then
just the base
that
story.
is very promising. I'm going to give it like a 6.3. I think it's good. I think my biggest takeaway, and I know I've said it a billion times now, but I'd never been able to articulate it as well as I did earlier. But like that fact that we need the assassinations to tie into their character progression, we needed, and that has to change in the future, or else these will never be remembered as any good character stories at all. It just won't be. It's because you can't separate the two. It makes it feel empty and all that. So yes, guys, I know a rather negative podcast, but we keep it real.
We do love it.
We do love it. And we keep it real here. So,
and I do think it's worth your money. I get asked that all the time. Should I buy it? Is it worth my money?
100%.
Dude, yes. This is a fun effing game. There's so much content for you to chew on, just like Valhalla, but I think even way better than Valhalla. They've got so many cities. The map is enormous. Like, as far as gameplay is concerned, there's so much here for you. And that's the majority of you out there. You play for the game itself, not necessarily for the story. Right. It does have a very self-contained story. I do think it's a very good story. It's not finished, so we'll obviously see where it goes from here. But yeah, buy this game even at full price. Obviously we did not buy this game, but I would buy it.
It's great for free.
I would totally buy it. But also, Assassin's Creed games go on sale more than any other franchise I've ever seen in my life. So if you want to wait another 2 days, it'll probably be on a 50% sale.
Yeah.
So,
but guys, we will be back soon. We're back. The pod is back. We've got some fun things planned. We're gonna be alive and well around here. We thank you so much for your patience through these last 2 months with us. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Again, like Bubba said, comment everything we got wrong, everything you disagree with, things you agree with, and also super nice things that you love about us, because that makes our day. So like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will be seeing you very, very soon. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.